When I was a little girl, my parents always said, family is everything. They'd say it with a glimmer in their eyes, as if the words themselves were sprinkled with magic. But as I grew up, that warm sentiment started to feel less like a comforting hug and more like a heavy chain, tying me to a truth I desperately wanted to escape. My name is Sarah, and this is the story of how I finally broke free. Growing up as a twin sounds idyllic to most people. They picture two halves of a perfect whole, finishing each other's sentences and sharing an unbreakable bond. But my twin sister Emily and I were anything but alike. She was outgoing and magnetic, always soaking up the spotlight, while I preferred the quiet corners lost in books and thoughts. No matter what I did or how hard I tried, the spotlight always seemed to find Emily and stay there. Our parents adored her. Don't get me wrong, they loved me too, but there was a clear difference. Emily's whims were indulged, her mistakes forgiven without a second thought. Meanwhile, I was the responsible one, the smart one, the one they didn't worry about because I had it all figured out. That favoritism hurt, but I buried the pain, convincing myself it didn't matter. That illusion shattered when I turned 26. I was engaged to the love of my life, Mark, and thrilled to be planning our wedding. My late grandmother had left me a trust fund specifically for this moment, a gift I'd cherished since I was a teenager. It wasn't a fortune, but it was enough to give me the wedding I'd always dreamed of. Or so I thought. One sunny afternoon, my parents invited me over for what they called a family discussion. When I arrived, Emily was already there, lounging on the couch with a dazzling diamond engagement ring that seemed to mock me. She'd just gotten engaged, a surprise to no one, and was already deep into planning her wedding. Her fiancé, Greg, came from a wealthy family, so I assumed money wouldn't be an issue for her. "Sarah, honey," my mother began, avoiding my eyes, "we need to talk about the wedding fund." My stomach tightened. "What about it?" "Well," my father said, shifting uncomfortably, "we've decided that since Emily's wedding is coming up first and it's going to be quite the event, it makes sense to use those funds for her celebration." I stared at them, waiting for the punchline. "You're joking." My mother pressed on, her tone infuriatingly calm. "Emily's wedding is important for her social standing. Greg's family has certain expectations, and—" "That money was meant for my wedding," I interrupted, my voice trembling. "Grandma left it to me." "Sarah," Emily interjected with a syrupy smile, "you're so practical. I'm sure you can plan something beautiful without all the extras. It's not about the money, right?" Her words felt like a slap. They had stolen my dream to fund hers, and now she was twisting it into some kind of moral lesson. Something inside me broke. "You can have the money," I said, my voice icy, "but you won't have me." I walked out without another word, slamming the door behind me. That night, I blocked their numbers and vowed to build a life that didn't include them. Over the next 2 years, I transformed. I threw myself into my career in tech, rising through the ranks faster than I thought possible. Therapy became my lifeline, helping me untangle years of neglect and favoritism. I bought my first home, a cozy townhouse with a garden, and surrounded myself with friends who felt more like family than my own ever had. Emily tried reaching out a few times, her messages alternating between half-hearted apologies and guilt-tripping pleas for family unity. I ignored them all. I didn't miss her, and I certainly didn't trust her. Then the accident happened. My parents were involved in a serious car crash, leaving them with mounting medical bills. Despite her lavish lifestyle, Emily refused to help. Instead, she showed up at my door, expecting me to clean up the mess. "Sarah," she began, all faux sincerity, "I know things have been complicated, but Mom and Dad need us. You can't just abandon them." I stared at her, unflinching. "Funny, that's exactly what they did to me." She bristled. "This isn't about the past. They're our parents." "No, Emily," I said, my voice steady. "They're your parents. I stopped being their daughter the day they decided I didn't matter." Her face flushed with indignation as she tried to argue, but I'd had enough. "You have a rich husband and all the connections in the world. Figure it out." I closed the door in her face, feeling a weight lift from my shoulders. In the weeks that followed, distant relatives bombarded me with guilt-laden messages. I ignored them too. For the first time, I was living life on my own terms, free from the expectations of people who'd never truly valued me. A few months later, I accepted a promotion that required moving to a new state. As I packed my things, I felt an overwhelming sense of closure. Cutting ties with my family hadn't been easy, but it had been necessary. They taught me that family isn't defined by blood, it's defined by love, respect, and mutual care. Now, as I sit in my new home, sipping coffee and watching the sunrise, I feel something I haven't felt in years: peace. My story isn't about bitterness or revenge, it's about reclaiming my worth and choosing happiness. And for that, I'll always be grateful.